money, and I'm kind of like scratching my head thinking, how can this actually work? How can I actually do this, and provide for my family and still be that protector and provider and fulfill the responsibilities that I have. Um, so I mean,
Yeah, it's
like
a very good question.
yeah,
Yeah, look, it's a very good question, and I think as responsible adults and husbands, fathers, etc. I think is a good question to kind of reflect upon. And look, I however much planning, and I did do some planning. Obviously, like there were I initially I was volunteering, and then I dedicated more and more time, but I was doing it outside of my full time work. Um, and that worked well for a while. But I didn't actually make the jump until I could secure a level of income, and it wasn't as much as I was getting paid, obviously, in the corporate sector. And I'm not saying those those salaries don't exist in the charity sector. They do. I mean, like, but you normally have to get really, really high. And I did get there eventually, but obviously when I started, they were with smaller charities. And even though I was a CEO or general manager, etc., they were general managers of very small charities. But there was some. My point is there was some planning in place. It wasn't like there was a complete jump to from earning loads of money to earning nothing. So there was some planning in place, and I would encourage all those that have a level of responsibility that our faith teaches us as well that we have to tie our camel, we have to do our bit, and then take the leap of faith. You don't There's no such thing as a blind leap of faith in Islam and what we're taught. You do your due diligence, you do whatever you can. But what I would say though is at the end it is a leap of faith, right? So there's no doubt about it. Like I mean, even after planning, even if I secured a little bit of income, when I did finally make that jump, um, to make that jump, it is a leap of faith at the end. And what really kind of kept me confident in it, I guess, doing that is my intentions were really, really clear. Like I was constantly like just making this intention that I'm doing it to help Muslims or help the community, helping charity do better. And I personally thought I could add value, I could do better, or make this charity work better. And I would just ask Allah to make dua, lots of dua about guiding me towards the right thing, etc. Um, so I guess what gave me confidence, Shazad, is that I didn't believe I was doing it for a worldly gain. If anything, I was losing money, like physical money, and because I wasn't doing it for a worldly gain, it gave me confidence that what, God's help will come, and it did. I very quickly got back the money that I'd kind of like lost in the gap. I got better and better positions. I got bigger and bigger charities, and eventually I made it back to that kind of from a materialistic kind of angle. I made it back up to that level. But yeah, I think however much of planning you do, there is a leap of faith, and I think the audience kind of have to understand that you're never going to be secure enough to give you like, oh, you know what, I'm going to move from here to here and everything can be hunky dory and it's going to carry on as normal. No, at the end of it's humanitarian work, it's charity work. It works very differently, just like any other sector. If you move from one sector to another sector, it works very differently, and you have to learn new things, new ways of working, a new type of language that people are using, etc. So do your planning, be responsible, and just make lots and lots of dua and be brave. I think is the final kind of advice I'd give. Is at the end you still have to be brave to make that jump, um, but keep your intentions clear, and you'll probably be assisted, inshallah. Yeah.
mashallah, mashallah, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, and it really is inspiring. We see what's happening in Palestine, for example, and how the narrative is shifting. How I grew up, like hearing about what's happening in Palestine, and always thinking that there's nothing that can really happen there. It's there is such a big kind of cover up, and and it's just so. it's such an atrocity. And the reason why I mention that is because these little decisions that we make, these are sometimes our our life changing kind of leaps of faith, right? Which can be a means of inspiration for others. Now, obviously, the Palestinian people have made the ultimate sacrifice. Subhanallah, I'm nothing, not even like an iota. My iman is not even an iota of theirs, right?
Mm,
But an atom's worth. But um, through their tawakkul and their yaqeen, all right, and their certainty in the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like the narrative is shifting. Like, people from all walks of life, regardless of race, religion, ethnicity, like are screaming from the top of their voice, that this, like, that Palestine should be free, that this is a genocide, right? So, like, that when you talk about leap of faith, I mean, your family must have been against you, right?
mm,
So your friends, your inner circle of friends and family, I can't imagine too many people saying to you, Kashif, go for it, right? You might get the odd person here or there,
mm.
generally because people who are close with you tend to want to protect you. So, how did you manage all of that kind
Mm.
of stuff?
Yeah, another good question. Um, Look, I think very early on, I I realized that, like you said, your friends, your family, especially my mom, you know, they want their children to be successful. They want them to be happy, and whichever way they kind of manifest that, you know, sometimes actually is a bit, but ultimately that's what they're looking for. If they want, if you want, they want you to stay in a job, if they want you to be stable, get married, whatever it is that your parents are kind of put. Most parents are doing that because they ultimately want your happiness and want good for you, um, and that might not come out like obviously the way that we want it sometimes. Um, I think when I made the move to the US, and before up to the point that I moved into the charity sector, I was quite successful in my career, and I think that built a lot of credit with my friends and family, especially my family, and especially my mom and my dad. Like, so they I guess I had built enough credit with. I don't, they use this term in books called emotional credit, right, with people. So I believe I built enough of that with my parents, especially my parents, which is ultimately, quite frankly, the main people that mattered at the time. Maybe that and my wife, them and my wife, and I think there was enough emotional credit built up with my parents and those that mattered to me, that they trusted the judgments that, or the decisions that I was making. And you have to remember, like I said, I don't want to make out that I was going and living of the poverty line. I wasn't. I never made that kind of, but I was making a big jump from this successful corporate leadership kind of thing over to the charity, which is generally seen as being the poor man's kind of job, and and, and people that, and it's true, they largely see it as people don't normally make it are successful in the corporate sector are the ones that go and work in the charity sector, because they were never good enough to work in the corporate sector. That's how it was seen, at least back then. I mean, I'm talking about like 20 years ago. It's changed a lot now. You've got a lot more professionals coming into the charity sector, but I think that level of trust, I'd shown them that I was clever enough to be successful in the corporate life. I had gone to the States. I had a good job in the States. I'd traveled the world while I was over there in the States. They knew Wakashi was flying out to a country every other week and stuff like that. They had this hugely successful son, and now that son is telling them that he wants to do something different. I'm not saying there wasn't a challenge there. All I'm saying is that I think if you can, if you are good to your parents, if you can show them and you build up this emotional credit with the people that you love and that matter to you, then presenting them with that kind of choice is easier than, if you've not treated them well, or that relationship might be rocky in the first place, and then you present them with, on top of that, I'm going to leave this and I'm going to go this, and they're like, look, on top of everything else, now you've told me you're going to do this, and I think that becomes a different kind of conversation. But look, I had
Yeah.
to convince them that my family was taken care of. You know, I was
Yeah.
married at the time, had kids at the time. I had to convince them that they will be okay, that there was salary coming in. I didn't quite tell them how much the difference was, and then that. But I think that emotional credit by that time, Shazad, really did help. To be honest with you, I think that that helped me uh,
Yeah.
through those conversations. Yeah, and I think it would have been different if I maybe wasn't as successful on the
Yeah.
corporate side, and then maybe had that. If my first job was the charity sector, I think it would have been a very probably a very
Yeah.
different conversation, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was to try and put myself in your parents' shoes,
Mm.
or maybe parents, oh, let's say your wife's shoes, yeah, because
Yeah,
sometimes that can be more challenging than parents, right? So,
yeah, yeah. I think
um,
so. Yeah, yeah, probably. Yeah.
right. So, like, the question that would come to my mind, if I was trying to kind of not be emotionally attached and be a complete neutral, it's like, why charity? Like,
Mm.
why do you want to get into the charity sector?
Mm.
Like, what's your why?
Mm. Oh yeah, it's the ultimate question, isn't it? As a coach, what's your why? Yeah, very good. You're turning the tables on me. Um, I know there's a question there about Adam. We'll come back to it.
Yeah, yeah,
I haven't forgotten. But I think the why is a good question. I think, look, I think one thing I want to make clear is that I don't think everyone needs to move into the charity sector to discover their why. Right. So you can be absolutely excellent at any, let's just say, halal mode of work that you're in, and you can be equally, if not more, impactful um, uh, to people in a positive way. I found that I could add value and I could make the charity sector better. I thought I could make it more efficient. I thought I could impact more people than I could working for, at that time, Nokia, the phone company. For those people that remember, that's the only corporate job I'd had. I'd worked there for from graduation to about 15 or 16 years. So I moved. I worked with them here. I went to the USA with them. I went traveled with them, and then I came back to the UK with Nokia as well. So it's the only corporate I've ever worked for, from graduation to leaving and joining the charity sector, and they were very good to me, and they helped me develop, etc., personally and stuff. But ultimately, that choice was my own, and I don't think the my why was, I thought I could impact more people doing what I'm doing now than I could have stayed and done at Nokia. It might have been wrong. Maybe I would have stayed at Nokia and I would have become the CEO, and I could have could have taken Nokia down a journey, and that could have impacted more people. Yeah. So what I'm saying to the callers, and to those people that are working in whatever profession they're working in, is that your why might be very different. My why was that I wanted to change people's lives, and I thought the best way for me to do that was to bring this skill set over from here and apply it to the charity sector. And I could multiply my reward. I could multiply the number of lives that I could impact, by implementing those skills, that implementing and executing on that skill set. And I think that's what individuals have to look at. Um,
yeah. But the the why is, like you said, right? For coaches, it's all about the why, yeah. And we could go so much more deeper with this, but like I understand, that you wanted to impact more people. So does that suggest that you were maybe you felt like you were maybe unfulfilled in your
absolutely,
corporate career?
no, absolutely. I don't think we can. I can. I don't think I can. Yeah, I think I can never deny that fact that yes, I felt I could do more. Absolutely, and I felt that I was earning, at a young age, earning a lot of money. I did have no dependents. I wasn't married when I first moved over to California. Eventually, I did, but when I first moved over there, my parents weren't dependent on me, like for any type of support, any family member. It was literally just myself, and I was gaining all of this knowledge, and I was traveling the world, But absolutely right, Shada. I didn't think I and I was getting a little bit older, um, and I was practicing at the time. I think that's a fair thing to say as well. That you know, I'd learned a lot more about my religion and what I can and could not do and what I should be doing, and that responsibility. And maybe this is where you're getting me to, because you're such a good coach. Is I started to feel some level of responsibility to my fellow Muslims, to the fellow communities that I was living in, and that began to dig away at me really, and I thought, how could I benefit them more from all of this good stuff that I was doing or learning, etc. um, and my way was to try to enter the charity sector with that skill set. But yeah, I think I did, and I still do, by the way. It's a massive driver, and my mum says it to me all the time. You walk around with like the responsibility of the world on your shoulders. There's a Punjabi and Urdu phrase that goes with that. um, I'm not going to embarrass myself to say it, but she constantly sees this in me. I do take things on like that, and I do feel responsible. I do feel like I need to give more, and at that time, this is how I felt. I should give more.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's just so beautiful. And yeah, you're absolutely right. That's exactly the direction I wanted to
Mhm.
take you. So, alhamdulillah,
That's because you're a better coach than me, bro. That's
no, no, no. I'm your
that's right.
student. This is why I'm reveling in this opportunity to ask you these questions. Alhamdulillah. Thank you also for your openness and transparency. I'm sure people are getting value from this because, many of us can relate to being in a living in a first world country where we're comfortable, right? We might not necessarily have a thriving, successful corporate career like you have, mashallah, but most of us are pretty comfortable. But yet, despite having family and not being, relying on depending on anyone, for help, for food, for shelter, for clothing, like we feel unfulfilled. There's a part of us that doesn't feel like we're really, like, like tasting the sweetness of this life of iman, right? So, um, and I know when I had my kind of, I call myself a reborn Muslim. Like I had that phase where I kind of, just felt like the Muslim within me got kind of reawakened. This was around the sort of year 2000, and I'd just been to Umrah, and like I wanted to get more involved, and I started questioning my work. I'd never done that before. Like, what am I achieving here in this work? Like how am I serving the Deen? The questions I never looked at things from that angle. So, it's good for me. It's nice to hear even people like yourself who are probably a lot more higher up the corporate ladder than I've been, like still having those same emotions, right? So it's beautiful, and I concur with what you said about not everyone needs to make the transition. You can become a man or woman of God, as a CEO in the private sector, right? You could mentor other people, help propel them, even other Muslims, and help them to avoid some of the pitfalls that are associated with that line of work. So absolutely, you don't necessarily, not everyone has to make that transition, but you did it, and mashallah, I think hats off to you. I want to address that question that you mentioned from brother Adam
Mm.
about working in the US. If you could maybe just kind of elaborate on that a little bit, and whether that's something that you'd recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. I've in my family, I was the first to move abroad, um, like for anything at that time, and and that was tough in itself, like trying to convince my parents that I was going to go away and work for this company, etc. We'd all stayed at home when we went to university. We were all raised in London, so all of us went to London universities, etc. From whilst we were at home, no one moved away for university. No one moved. The only time anyone moved away from the family home was when they got married, maybe, or even after that. Like once anyone could afford a house, which was quite uncommon in those days. Like buying, you normally just stayed in a big house, as most of our generation probably from that would realize. So moving away from home was a big thing, but I must say that it was a massive positive learning experience for myself, and absolutely, I think professionally, I don't know if I'd recommend it before you're working, like, but definitely as a professional, I think getting any sort of international experience, abroad, working in different cultures, working in different countries, um, it was a massive, not only from a professional point of view, it was a massive boost. Like, I could demand a lot more when I came back to the UK with that international experience than if you had stayed in the UK in that role and just naturally grew in the business. 100%. You understand? So I would absolutely recommend it from both a professional point of view. If you want to get, like, skip a few steps in your professional development, if you want to earn more, if you want to experience more, if you want to grow more professionally, that stint abroad is a really good idea. And then from a personal perspective, personal development, learning about people, learning about different cultures, learning about how people do business and how people think, even in the charity sector, like, going out and visiting different countries. Um, I thought that experience was invaluable, and my kids are bored of it now because every time a country comes on TV, and I'm like, yeah, I've been there, I've been there, and they're like, yeah, we know that, we know that. But there's a part of that I can speak to, and I can tell them about, and I can pass on. They might not, they may, inshallah, but they may not probably visit all the countries that I've ever gone to. They don't know those people. They might not see those lands. And this passing on of knowledge and experience, I think it greatly enhanced my confidence to talk about the world as well, which is really important in these days. Like, it's a skill that, that I think really does give an individual confidence when you can sit amongst other executives or management or even peers and be able to talk about those experiences, how things work in a different country. I think it gives yourselves a level of gravitas as well. So yeah, so both from a personal and professional development perspective, I would highly recommend it. But I would only recommend it personally. I would only recommend it once you are a professional. I think traveling prior to you having a skill set, or being maybe a little bit, um, I'm not going to say immature, but inexperienced, I think probably is probably a better word. Um, I think that sometimes has the opposite effect.
Yeah, yeah. Excellent, excellent. I think very wise words of advice there, inshallah. I hope that answers your question, Brother Adam. And also, please, if there are any other questions, um, feel free to ask.
Oh, we got a
Um,
hand. We got a hand.
yeah,
We got a hand.
we've got a hand here. So, would you like to ask the question? I think it's Sister Ifat maybe who's asking the question. Feel free to unmute yourself, or you can type it in the chat, whichever you prefer.
Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome,
Right.
sir.
Okay. How are you,
Um,
Sister Ifat? You okay?
it was I'm okay, alhamdulillah.
Thank you for
Sorry,
joining.
no, it's all good. I kind
Uh,
of joined late actually, so I kind of missed the beginning. So you might have actually already discussed this.
no
So
worries.
you were saying that your background, Brother Kashif, was from the corporate world. So I believe there's a lot of like governance and things like that that you need to follow, and it's quite heavy-handed, fairly black and white. How did you transition, or do you feel that there is a big difference going from the governance and corporate world into the charity community world?
Not so much on the governance side. I think the governance side on the charity side is a lot more problem. I was going to say problematic, but I guess that's not what I should say. It's a lot more. It's a lot more structured. It's a lot more stricter than the governance that you have to deal with on the corporate side. Unfortunately, corporations get away with a lot more uh, in this world, in the times that we live in, than charities do. The charity governance. Um, Look, I mean, I was in a position where I ended up in court against the charity commission because of some of their antics against the Muslim charities, especially, and we were successful in taking them to tribunal, etc. Um, the so the reason why I mentioned that is because the experience I have in the charity sector is mostly around dealing with governance issues and helping other charities deal with governance issues. So my knowledge on governance and and good governance was actually learned in the charity sector, not in the corporate sector. Unfortunately, corporations, um, even now as you see them on the news, they get away with a lot more than charities get away with, and that's a lot to do with the fact that in the charity world, um, as a charity, the money that you have is considered someone else's money the whole time, even when you have it as a charity. So the way you're governed is as if you're custodians of someone else's amana, of someone else's money, and so the laws, and the way that the commission is set up in this country, the charity commission, is a lot more stringent. Whereas obviously, if you're running a corporation, for profit enterprise, then that money is largely yours to use how you wish. Um, as long as you report and do your finances and report them in a certain way, there's a lot more loopholes and ways to get around that in the corporate sector. Sister, yeah, my governance experience has largely been built up and strengthened because of the charity sector, not the other way around. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much for that, Claire.
Thank you for your question, Sister Ifat, and hope you're well. I hope the weather's nice in sunny Scotland. Well, usually
The
not very sunny.
weather's booming. It was absolutely pouring the other day, and then today it was a wee bit cold, but now, alhamdulillah, the sun's slowly trying to peek through. So I'm waiting for the rain in a couple of days, but it's all good.
Yeah,
With rain comes barakah.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And if nothing else is going for you in Scotland, at least you have that wonderful accent, right? So, alhamdulillah, not all doom and gloom. But no, seriously, thank you for joining. And if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to ask. Um, Okay, Brother Kashif, if I may, I would like to transition or actually return back to. I touched upon Palestine earlier, right?
Mm.
And I came across a podcast of yours recently on, I believe it was a Thinking Muslim podcast where you were interviewed, and mashallah, you kept that one quiet. Or if you shared it, it wasn't shared in any common groups, that's for sure. So may Allah reward you for your humility, but please share things like that. Like, if people benefit, right? That's sadaqah jariyah, right? So, you talked about ways we can help people, and what I liked about that particular perspective, it was different to what we normally are accustomed to. And what I mean by that is, we always, think that helping the Palestinians or anyone who is in need should be done through, like, food and clothes and things. And of course, I mean that those are absolute essentials. We always have to start with those things. One thing I noticed with my recent deployments to Turkey, was that yes, they need food, yes, they need groceries, they need blankets, they need a home, all of those things, um, and we can't get away from that. But long term, what these women and children, these orphans, these widows, even the elderly, what they really need is psychological help. Um, you know, and for me, it was quite difficult to actually express that when we used to have our check-ins every evening. As part of the charity, we would just check in with everyone, make sure everyone's okay, share our perspectives. It was quite hard to kind of impress upon people how important it was, how important the psychological well-being was. And I think with charities, there's this mindset that, look, we can't do everything. Um, a lot of charities are not based in the country that we're helping. So maybe subconsciously we're thinking that that's people who are on the ground. That's maybe their job. The authorities there have to kind of help with that. So I've got two questions there for you. Number one, do you think that that's something charities should incorporate, psychological help? Because I really feel like that's something that, if I was to go down the charity route, like myself in the future, like I want to try and incorporate that if possible.
Mhm.
And number two, what other ways can we assist people? Because and you talked about this in your podcast, so if you could maybe address those two questions, inshallah.
Excellent.
You're mute. Yeah.
Um, yeah, Jazakallah. I mean, about the podcast thing, since you are determined to keep raising look. The truth is, I don't do many of them. I find them. I find them uncomfortable, and I did really push myself to even do that one, largely because
Mashallah.
I was a fan of the Thinking Muslim, and I was like almost like blown away when he asked me to kind of do it. So I think. But yeah, I mean, I am glad I done it at the end because the feedback from it was absolutely awesome, and even from the host Muhammad Jalal became a good friend after that, and has continued to kind of pass on the feedback. So yeah, point taken. Yeah, I do have to. I should do more of those, and it does seem like they have come across or have been accepted well by the community. So jazakallah for that. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, and sorry I didn't share it with you earlier before I done it. I'll try to put a link up somewhere.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Um, look, the truth is that look, the psychological stuff is included, or there are programs. There are. Sorry, let me restart. There are programs delivered by charities in this area, but I think the correct thing would be to say it's definitely not enough, or it's not as balanced as it is, let's say, on the food supplies and other types of things. Now, look, some people can argue that that's because feeding someone is more important than the psychological help. And I think when it's an emergency situation or an emergency appeal, then absolutely that might make more sense. I.e., you need to keep someone alive to be able to give them any psychological support, etc. I think the more important question, Shazad, if I may, is that we need to broaden our understanding of charity. Um, what has happened, and yeah, for those that listen to the podcast, I'm sure they've heard me say this a million times before and stuff, is that our definition of charity in the modern world has skewed so much towards what the West define as charity, a donation, a couple of quid or whatever, a million quid. Um, and this is not the definition that Islam has ever used for charity work. The Prophet ﷺ defined charity in so many different ways. Look at the life of the Prophet ﷺ. It wasn't just to collect money from people, which is what it's become now. And I think until we don't re-educate ourselves, brother Shazad, on what charity actually means in our faith, in for the world to actually become, I know it sounds cheesy, a better place. It's not going to happen by just giving cash donations and food supplies and stuff. It has a very holistic approach. Why did the Prophet ﷺ just take the little saying? Why did the Prophet ﷺ said, "Smile to your brother"? Like, just think about that statement. Smile to
Subhanallah.
your brother, right? Like, what? Just to directly answer your question, brother Shazad, if that is not psychological support, what is it?
Mashallah. Beautiful.
What is it?
Yeah.
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 But
Absolutely.
we've constrained ourselves to this charitable definition that which unfortunately has kind of like, embedded itself into the Muslim community and other communities as well, um, where it's literally come down to a donation or a food parcel. But the word sadaqah, the word charity, just doesn't have an equivalent in the Arabic language at all. Even in the Urdu language, we don't have such a word. We have sadaqah, we have words like barakah and all of these things, and they are so vast in their meaning. And to cut long story short, I think not only mental health, I think we just need to look at the holistic way of bringing someone from poverty, from not only from poverty, but their mental, their physical, their spiritual state, from whatever level they are to this level. And all of those things have to happen. And unfortunately, we've just narrowed our meaning to the physical state, you know and that's what we look at. we
Yeah.
the spiritual is not looked at, the mental is not looked at, the religious is not looked at, what was it, the I said spiritual, mental, and I can't remember what was the third one, but but that holistic approach
Yeah.
what Islam and our faith teaches us, and I think this is what we need to educate. Of course,
Yeah.
give to food parcels, but then look at other programs that charities are running, and give to those as well. Don't downplay them. And I can guarantee you, look, I was the CEO of a major charity. Yeah, I can guarantee you, if Shazad came along and wanted to give money to any charity and said, look, run a mental health program, I will give you money. I'm telling you that charity will run that program. The problem is Shazad's not coming to them and asking for that. And so there's no reason for them to change their programs. There's no reason for them to develop them, because they know that they can ask for food parcels and Shazad will give all day long.
Yeah.
So some of this responsibility absolutely does lie on the charity side. Some of this responsibility and education does rely on individuals, and the more of us are educated in this area now, which mashallah we know what it takes in some of these areas. I would lobby existing charities because they have the means to do it. I'm never an advocate of people starting their own charity. I'm just not. I don't like that stuff. But um, unless you're really going to do something different, and but my point is that they have the resources, they have the people in country, they have partners that can possibly deliver this stuff. If donors collectively lobby these charities to run these programs, 100%, bro, they'll run them all day long. Because at the end of the day, they just need to be funded. They don't have they have no reason not to run those things. But like I said, it first starts with this expanding our definition of what charity actually means, what helping another brother, helping another sister actually means. Wish for your brother what you wish for yourself, and so on and so forth, and widening that thing. Um, sorry, and then that last part was about what other ways can you assist. Look, I think if anything, what the Palestine situation has shown us, brother Shazad, is that everything has to be done in every avenue, every means. Those that can lobby, those that can talk to the MPs, talk to the MPs, those that can protest, have to protest, those that can write a letter, those that can give money and donate and give the food stuff, they can give money and stuff like that. What my only advice in this thing is, please, everyone, don't downplay anyone else's efforts. Don't downplay it. Don't put anyone else down. I that look that just doesn't work. You know what I mean? Don't do that. That just doesn't work. You do not know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not told us where the khair is going to come from, where the solution is going to come from. What gives us the right, what gives Shazad the right, me the right to say that, okay, you know what, don't vote, it's not going to help. Don't protest, it's not going to help. Don't give because the borders are closed and the trucks are not getting through. Astaghfirullah. Like, I mean, imagine if we actually started doing those things because we don't think they work, then who benefits? Who benefits? Yeah. And so the only
The oppressors.
is that a lot of what we're hearing on the news and things that is to do precisely what we are saying now. Don't give. Don't give because look, they're burning the trucks. Don't give. Yeah. Don't lobby because look, they're not changing their mind, they're not changing the law. Don't lobby because they want you to fall out of the system and they can carry on doing what they wish. Whatever people are doing, you let them do it. Inshallah, as long as it's halal and it's in the best of manners and it's legal, etc. All of those things obviously. But don't downplay anyone's efforts. If you can give. If you can give and protest, give and protest. If you can protest and give and turn up to the university encampments, then do that. If you can only do the university encampments, then do that. But don't put anyone else's efforts down. This is going real change requires a number of variables to come together, a number of things to come together, and we need to be working on all of those levels to enable
Yeah.
change to happen. Um, one of those things by themselves is not going to humanitarian aid by itself is not going to change the situation. But that's not. But I never tell people not to send humanitarian aid to Palestine. Like that,
Yeah.
let's not fall into that trap, inshallah.
Inshallah. What about organizations like BDS? What's your thoughts on them?
Yeah, sure.
PSC.
And all of these, we have to. We have to. I mean, how how can I sit here and say that, bro, like, give to humanitarian, but don't, and with the same hand, go and feed the IDF with by buying Veronda's company. The only thing I'd say about BDS is make it focused. Things like BDS and boycotts, any boycotts, not just this one, they only work if you focus your efforts. Pick those companies that are absolutely, no, unequivocally in support of the other side, yeah, and just remove them from your radar altogether. And when enough people do that, you can see, mashallah tabarakallah, you are seeing it. For all those people that ever doubted it, like, you're seeing that those ones, the big ones that everyone moved with together, those brands are moving out of those countries. They're shutting down, subhanallah. So absolutely, whether it's the BDS, whether it's the protests, whether it's giving in humanitarian aid, whether it's on your social media, whether it's sharing good news, um, please, we, all of those things have to happen in tandem for anything positive to change. And I would encourage everyone to do that, and don't put other people down, even if you think it's not a good idea. As long as it's, like I said, halal and legal, etc., let them do what they want to do. Let them do what they want to do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, excellent.
Mm.
Mashallah, we've covered a lot, and there's so much more I want to ask you, but just I want to respect your time and our beautiful audience as well. It's 7 o'clock UK time, so Brother Kashif, any final words of wisdom, any nasiha, any recommendations, advice you'd like to give before we wrap this up?
I mean, I will, inshallah. But if there is anyone else that wants to ask a question, uh, I'll, I'll give them a couple of seconds. Maybe someone was too shy to speak or write. And before
I
we
did.
start.
I did actually have a slight bone to pick with you, but I'll maybe pick that with you offline. It's just
With
to
me,
respect the time.
with
It's a question on on something you said.
oh, is it? I could probably guess which one it was as well. Um,
Really?
yeah, I can. Does it?
Can I quickly
Go ahead.
jump in and ask? So we're obviously talking about psychological help and things for like the people in Palestine, things like that. And of course, charity also starts at home, and there's a lot of people suffering at home and things like that. The National Zakat Foundation, they tend to work with people close to home and then spread out. So do you feel that one of the reasons why charities aren't able to take these psychological kind of give people psychological help essentially because they don't have enough professionals to do it, or professionals feel that they're not appreciated enough to do this? Because when obviously you're talking to people and things like that, it can take an emotional toll on you, like mentally and physically kind of toll on you.
Mm,
um do you feel that is an issue?
mm. Jazakallah has is a really good question. Look, I mean, and Shazad maybe even more qualified to respond to it. Um, my view is that both. There was a time where I thought I needed to become more qualified in that mental health space because of the number of people that were coming to me personally for advice, just like you do, because you start to get disposition in the community, and people start coming to you, and you feel underqualified. You don't feel like you're in a position to give, and and when I started researching at that point, sister, I did feel like there wasn't enough qualified people in this area. No, so that side, on the supply side, definitely true, or not definitely true. I found good faith-based guidance was definitely missing, in my view. Um, Number one. And then on the supply side, oh sorry, on the demand side, yeah, look, I think most minority communities suffer from the same kind of stigma, which is that, and it's getting better, because people are talking about it more now. It's more trendy, or acceptable to talk about it now amongst celebrities, etc. So that is helping, but generally in our communities, it's not really accepted that if you're sick, you know, unless you don't have no physical outward symptom of someone being sick, like, you know, you're not really considered to be sick, and thus if you're not considered to be sick, then you're not going to be looking for help, and you're not going to be going to a doctor and stuff, and you're just expected to deal with it. So um, uh, I think faith-based mental advice and health is definitely a gap. Qualified people to do that, um, where people might feel comfortable to go. And then I think we need to open up, and obviously, alhamdulillah, I think this is one of the channels that we've started to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, all credit to Shazad and Miriam and the other coaches. You know, they really did push for a safe space like this where people can come and talk. I know I've been doing most of the talking, or Shazad's been most of the talking, but they are supposed to be safe places for us to discuss those things. So hopefully, inshallah, there's more of this happening now than there was before. Um, but yeah, that's kind of where I feel we are with that.
Yeah, it's an excellent question, Sister, by the way, and I hope that that answers your question. Jazakallah khair. With that being said, I think
Yeah. Let's wrap up. Inshallah. Jazakallah khair, guys. I mean, yeah, we've gone past 7, and apologies. But it was a good question. Jazakallah khair, and hopefully we get more people talking about it, and more people qualified to address those issues as well. Look, no parting pieces of advice from myself, except that, look, I do. If you do feel like you need more one-to-one kind of discussions, advice, either with myself, Shazad, or Mariam, then please reach out, and you can set up individual sessions with themselves that might be more helpful for you in your specific situation. And then lastly, please, we've put the link up there in the chat box. Tell other people about the sessions. We try to run them, inshallah. Our intention is to run them at least every other week. And sometimes we have special guests, sometimes we just do it ourselves, but we do feel like it's something needed for the community for all the reasons that Sister Ifat said so. So please just try to spread the word, and share it with others. And the same link, we try to use the same link every other week, so you just need to save this link, inshallah, and same time every other Thursday. uh, if you can help us promote this, that would be great as well, inshallah. And any feedback, we'll try to, inshallah, incorporate into further sessions. So jazakallah for your time, very much appreciated. And yeah, jazakallah.
thank you, Brother Kashif, for taking out time for answering the questions with such precision. Really, mashallah. Really value your time, your expertise, your knowledge, your honesty, your openness. It's not easy. You talk about some very personal things there, and I definitely got value, and I'm sure people listening also benefited, and many others who will listen to the replay will also benefit, inshallah. Um, as Brother Kashif said, we've shared the link. So if anybody wants to reach out, I've posted a link to his podcast as well on Thinking Muslim podcast. Please feel free to use that, share that with other people, your contacts. And I've also shared the link for the WhatsApp group, whereby you'll be notified about future sessions and any other courses, or any other. Hopefully, if somebody's on a future podcast, they'll let us know or something. So inshallah, it'll be a beneficial platform for people to keep in touch with us. And also, of course, if you're part of the WhatsApp group, you can message us privately if you want to, if you have any issues that you want to discuss. We provide life coaching services for the Muslim community, not just in Reading, but overseas, all over the world. So if we can be of service to anyone, Brother Kashif has a wealth of experience in the corporate sector, and he's certified, as an executive coach. Sister Mariam, as well, mashallah, comes from a legal background, is very well qualified. So we're here to serve, and utilize these wonderful coaches and their skills and their expertise and their knowledge. What Brother Kashif shared today is just a glimpse. It's just scratching the surface, really. So there's skills that can be utilized, and we need to tap into that. So we're really keen to get your feedback as well. If you need anything from us, any ideas, any suggestions, any courses you think we should do, I'm thinking about maybe doing like a joint webinar or something. around sort of managing difficulty and negativity and the world that we live in today. So if that's something that you guys think would be of value, then please let us know. Inshallah, we can put something together. Inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you once again.
Jazakallah. Thank you,
And
sir. Thank you,
we'll
everyone.
see you
Jazakallah
next
khair, guys. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
time. Thank you.